Bienvenue, I'm the Overpickard. Today is a very special day that I'm incredibly excited about, because today is the day when Jolene gets a new windscreen seal. My 2CV has had a leaky windscreen since the day I bought her. It's not because it's old and cracked and shrunk like many older cars, unfortunately. It's because whoever fit it with a Stanley knife. There are many products that claim to stop window leaks. People try using silicone. There's leak stop, which is like a liquid latex stuff, and none of it works. To be honest, it's a bit like cheating on a test when you're in school. It takes more work and is messier than actually doing it properly, and usually it doesn't work at all. So the only decent way of doing it is actually to replace that seal. That comes with two potential problems. One, me breaking the windscreen. Fingers crossed, touch wood, I won't do. And the other potential problem is I'm not sure about the condition of the windscreen frame. I don't think it's rusty, but we'll see. But if it is rusty, when I take my windscreen out, I'm going to have to repair it and sort it out. And there's no other rust on Jolene really, except for behind one of the door seals, which I've already sorted out. So I'm not too worried about that. More worried about breaking the old windscreen. I do have access to another windscreen, but let's just hope I'm not going to need it. As you can see, the windscreen frame on the outside is actually split. I think they cut it through from the back with a Stanley knife by accident, but that's no good. Inside, all looks normal until you put the sun visor back. And when you put the sun visor back, yeah, I don't know if you can see this, they've actually cut away with a Stanley knife all the way around in order to get it in, which means that there's very little actually holding it in the car, and it's actually split altogether. Where is it? Take my sunglasses off. It's actually split here, there. So you can see actually how little is holding it in. So this is the new windscreen rubber. This is the inside. This is the outside with its big rubber frond on it, and this is where the glass fits in here. This one may actually be the same sort, although I don't think so, because it doesn't look as good as this does. Although it wouldn't matter at all because it's been hacked to death. So I've got to take my windscreen out. But first, I may actually take my God, what's the word in English? My windscreen wipers off, because I don't want to catch my windscreen on my wipers and damage it or anything like that. So I'm going to need a screwdriver. Yep. Haha. See, there's just a little tapered nub with fins on it, and the fitting just has fins, and they just pull off. I'm not actually going to trim the windscreen rubber down inside to get it out, as I normally would do, because somebody's already done it for me. But I'm going to make sure everything's off the windscreen so it can't get damaged, including taking my insurance off. Because got to keep that safe. Get that off, clean that up after. And everything's gone. Everything's been removed. So now, hopefully, I talked to my dad about when he removed the windscreen from his rally car, and back in the day, I'm going to need a tool, and he said I literally put my feet against it and pushed slowly. I want to be slightly more methodical than that. I've never done this before, as you can probably tell. This isn't a how-to, unlike my dynamo video. This is it may be a how not to. Find a good place to start. This windscreen seal, I know, has been siliconed in at least once, because there was a lot of goo and residue around it, and it's also had the leak stop on it, which is liquid latex, because I cleaned all the rubbish off it. So I'm going to need a tool. Excuse me for a moment. My tool. You can get like plastic levers for interior trim pieces and stuff like that. They're available at some car accessory shops, apparently I haven't been able to find any. And I could order some off Amazon or whatever, but I have tyre levers. These are Decathlon plastic resin tyre levers for removing tyres off carbon fibre rims. Not that I have carbon fibre rims on my bike, but they should just be just as good. Yes, look at that. Go straight in and levers it out. Or it should do, yeah. Straight in, push it forward. Well, I think I have the name for this video. I removed a windscreen with a bicycle tyre lever. I don't see any signs of rust so far, so that's good. The reason why I'm slightly concerned about rust is because the guy who painted this car seems to have, but the mirror on this car is a double ball joint. I don't know if you can see that. That's quite nifty, and you can actually position it pretty much anywhere you want. Anyway, the guy who painted this car, because this I don't think is the original colour, although this is the colour I would have painted it myself if I could have chosen all the 2CV colours. I like this rose grey and the yellow, the early yellow, the pastel yellow. But he seems to have just masked stuff up rather than removed it. So if there was any damage to the original paint, which being a barn find there probably was, assuming that the water would have got in between the windscreen frame and the rubber and slowly made its way through the metal, of course, because it can't get through the rubber. Hope not. Yeah, as you can see here, there's a raw metal edge to the window. So I don't think it is painted. We'll see. Hopefully that's the extent and the rest of it is painted. So yeah, unlike the people that fitted this windscreen, with jobs like this, even if you've never done it before, if you're slow and methodical, that's annoying. If you're slow and methodical, prop the door open with it. There we go. I hate these. Right, all 2CVs, or many 2CVs, are fitted with these like foam-filled, awful sunshades, and they're hilarious because when you put them down, you can't see anything anyway. I've got an idea of what I'm going to do with them. This one's even bent, look, but they don't work very well, and they actually obstruct your view a bit anyway. They drive me nuts. And when they get old, the foam goes inside them, and when you put them up, they're like crap foam everywhere, like dead knackered orange foam. It's awful. It's the one thing about 2CV design that I don't like. We get in there. Come on, get out. I have in my possession a suction cup. Some people recognise this as a GoPro mount. That's because this is my window mount that I made myself for when I'm filming inside the car sometimes. And it works okay. I've also put it on the outside of the car, which is pretty scary. €300 worth of camera like dangling off the side of your car, and you're looking back in your wing mirror going, please don't fall off, please don't fall off. But it's actually for removing windscreens, so I'm actually going to use it for its intended purpose. I've also used it for pulling out dents before in bodywork. It's not an expensive one. It cost me like €3.50, €3.50, something like that. And it's one of the best €3.50s I've ever spent. I'm just going along and I'm popping the windscreen frame up and making sure there's no silicone or anything holding it in. It all looks rust free and it doesn't seem to be any bare metal. So I'm happy about that. Very, very happy bunny. As you can see, there's a little lip here. I'm just trying to get that lip up and try and stop it. being no help. It's just in the way. Yeah, can you see this silicone in here? This silicone been beaded in. Actually, is that duct tape? Don't know what that is. There's some sort of sealant, and yep, that looks like either electrical tape or duct tape. That's a first, duct tape in a windscreen frame. Tavares is watching this going, nah man, I find duct tape in all my windscreen frames. Ah, bugger. These little corners are super stubborn. I'm being forceful but gentle. A soft but firm hand. Because obviously it's a big sheet of half-century old glass. If you have a windscreen rubber that you are trying to keep nice, I'm sure there's a proper procedure for this, by the way, but I would suggest that anytime you take a windscreen out, obviously you're not going to be doing it very often, so if a new screen rubber is available for your vehicle, which there are a bunch of companies out there that do make screen rubbers and door rubbers and stuff for classics, I suggest you get a new rubber, because it's a bit like gaskets. Like, you're probably going to stretch it getting it off anyway, so it probably won't fit like it was designed to, like it did originally. So then you're probably going to end up with a leak anyway. So you might as well get a new screen rubber. My screen rubber was about €20, which added to the price of a full restoration. As expensive as restorations are, you look at, like, even on cars that are cheap, like a 2CV, parts for 2CVs are cheap. Obviously a €20 windscreen rubber's relatively nothing if you're working on an old 911 or anything like that. You're going to be paying a lot more money. And it all adds up. Like, every single bit adds up, and all these little bits add up to a lot of money. The other day I went to a 2CV spares place to get this windscreen rubber and a few other little things, like some door seals, which I fit the other day. If you want to know how to fit a 2CV door seal with great difficulty, here's the answer. My advice is liquid soap. Start from the bottom corner and slide your way up slowly. It took me about 2 hours a door seal. But it's not massively complicated. It wasn't really worth making a video of. If it had been in this video, it would have been about 5 seconds of a video of me going trying to shove this damn thing up. Anyway, I bought a small bag of stuff, including some paint and stuff like that, for an upcoming video. And it came to like €170 in total, and it was a carrier bag full of stuff. So it just shows how quickly stuff does add up. So I understand people who try and be a bit tight and who try and save money, but this really isn't a place where you want to save money. It's a place where you want to get the right thing, and if you're replacing your windscreen because it got cracked or because it has, like, I've got some slight abrasion from my from the old windscreen wipers, from the old wiper blades. If obviously you've got big cuts from your old windscreen wipers and stuff like that, you're going to need a new windscreen. And if you're putting a new windscreen in, don't be cheap and try and do it with an old rubber, because it won't work. Use a new rubber every time. This idea of using this tie lever was actually a really good one, if I don't say so myself. These tie levers are designed to not damage rings when you're putting tyres on or taking tyres off. And obviously tyres are made of rubber, and rims are made of metal or carbon or plastic or whatever. So it's a very similar job to this, which is why I thought it might be a good idea. There we go. Windscreen. Hey. as you can see here in this corner, there's a little bit of rust bubbling there. I'll need to sort that out. And I have no idea why he put duct tape on the windscreen frame. What? Why? Why would you do that? That is weird. I'm going to have to sand it back along here. I think this is actually sealant, but this is rust here. That's rust, and there's a little bit on this edge. So I'll have to sand that back. I'm going to have to remove the duct tape. I'm going to have to sand this little bit back and this bit back, rust treat it, and give it a paint. So I'm actually going to take my dashboard out, because as you can see, it's got this vent here, and it's going to make this job a lot easier. And it's only about 10 screws anyway. I'm also going to have to take my Whipack map light out. How cool is that? It was a gift from a friend, and I've been waiting to put it in a car for literally 16 years. So the dashboard in this model of 2CV simply comes out with a lot of flathead screws, and that's held in with the same flathead screws that hold the dashboard in. Every single screw in Jolene is a flathead, which means that it was put in by hand, because the reason why cross-headed screws and Phillips headed screws were invented is because the self-center. So every single screw in here, because it's a flathead, was done with a screwdriver and a person. We make a big deal of things being handmade now, and one of the biggest myths surrounding 2CVs is that they stopped production because they were not emissions compliant. That was kind of a cover story. What actually happened was that hang on, there we go. Look how beautiful that is. Marshall windscreen wiper motor. You know you've got a beautiful quality vehicle when even the things that you can't see are nice. They made that as nice as they possibly could. Like I say, one of the biggest myths with 2CVs is that they stopped making them because the engines weren't emissions compliant. But that's not true. They actually stopped making them because they had to be handmade. And originally they were made in Paris, and obviously having a car factory in the centre of an rapidly expanding city wasn't a good idea. I think the last 2CVs made in Paris was 1984. After that they moved to Spain and Portugal. But the car was designed to be made by people. Like, labour is expensive and labour is very intensive. And that's why. And they actually designed a new engine to go in 2CVs, which went into a car called the Visa and another one called the LNA. And it was a 645cc engine. And it had Nickersill engine line, cylinder liners and all sorts. Really nice engine. And in other countries, not in France, but in other countries where you can actually modify, a lot of people put Visa and LNA engines into CVs. It's not that they couldn't run on unleaded. They could. They've always been able to run on unleaded since 1961. It's the fact that they were just too expensive to make. The best masking tape you can use is the blue wrinkly stuff, because you can actually put it around a corner. I don't have any, unfortunately. This is actually the worst little bit of rust here, and it's actually not so bad. Top of the morning to you. Well, as you can tell, different t-shirt and slightly exhausted expression. Last night, after we filmed what we filmed, there was a massive storm started, and the heavens opened, and the GoPro, even though I use a GoPro, because I'm using an external microphone, it's not waterproof. And I just masked all this up, so we had a mad scramble to get the car in the barn before it got absolutely drenched. Unfortunately we did. But then it was too dark to carry on and really film anything. I couldn't really see what I was doing in here because, as you can see, there's no lights yet. In fact, there's no floor yet, there's not anything yet. But there will be. This, in future, will be my workshop, our workshop. So, I'm working in the workshop now because it's actually, as sunny as it looks, it's actually quite drizzly and very windy. So I'm going to be working in here today. And what I've got to do first is sand off all these little rust bubbles. A lot of it I don't think is rust. I think it's just like bad painting. But I'm still going to do it all. And then I'm going to rust treat it all. Rust treatments. Whoops. This one's a Hammerite one. It's called Crust. And this one's by a company called Julianus. It's a French one. There's a bunch of different rust treatments out there. Some are really thick and pasty. I don't like them. They're awful. The thick and pasty ones. You want one that's really runny. And the reason is, you don't have to sand it back after you paint it, basically. This morning I'm going to sand this back. I'm going to paint it with rust treatment. Then the rust treatment takes time to dry. What the rust treatment does is it stabilises all the rust, or what little there will be left of it once I've sanded it. I don't have to sand it back all to bare metal. It's just not necessary, especially considering I'm painting over it with the same sort of paint that it's painted with, the exact same sort of paint. So I don't have to take it all back to bare metal. Luckily, just sand any rusty bits, paint them up with the rust stop, let the rust stop do its thing. It will turn the metal black and any bits of rust black, and that's absolutely fine. That's what it's supposed to do. Then hopefully tonight we'll get our first, well this evening, we'll get our first layers of paint on, and then tomorrow I'll be able to put the windscreen back in. All my doors are shutting on my barn. Open up doors. So I've sanded all the bottom back. I've sanded all the bottom back. So I've sanded all the bottom of where the windscreen rubber fit, but I don't want to be all brutal and sand through all my paint just to remove the sticky from the duct tape. So I'm going to use an old trick, and I'm going to use some rubbing alcohol. I could use wax and grease remover, except for the fact that I don't have any. And the closest place that sells wax and grease removers like an hour and a half away, and my car has no windscreen. So, a little bit of rubbing alcohol. Pop the lid on it so it doesn't evaporate. By the way, rubbing alcohol is really good for mosquito bites. It stops them itching. WD-40 also removes sticky stuff, as does a bunch of other stuff, but WD-40 also doesn't really get on very well with rubber, so I don't want to use anything that's too harsh or anything that's going to eat the paint or eat into the paint. I'm also going to use this alcohol as panel wipe because I can. If you want to keep dust out of your paint and you want to keep it all nice, the easiest way to do is keep cleaning up as you go along, and that way you won't end up with dusty horribleness in your paint. You'll end up with a nice paint finish. Of course, this is going to be under a windscreen seal, but I don't know it's there. Okay, so now I'm going to paint the rust solution, rust stop stuff, on to anywhere where there's exposed metal, not just rust, but exposed metal, because there's going to be bits that we can't see that are microscopic rust particles, and of course I've just put my sleeve in it. Everything that I can see where there's any little tiny bit of bare metal in the rust stop solution, because it should turn the rust black literally in front of our eyes. It doesn't have to be a thick coating, and like I say, a watery rust stop for this reason is much better, because it gets into all the little nooks and crannies. If you look here, you can actually see the rust changing colour, literally in front of your eyes, and it works that quickly. Now we've painted it up, all we've got to do is leave it to go off and dry. That's a really annoying noise. So I've put some bed sheets on Jolene, old bed sheets. Miriam's not going to kill me, don't worry. And I don't need to prime it because this is old-fashioned single-stagey type paint. And all my rust cure's gone off. Now I've covered her up mega because this paint plumes like crazy. So you will get overspray everywhere. If there's any sort of breeze or anything, it carries really easily. So I've masked and covered absolutely everything up to within an inch of its life. It's much easier to do it now than it is to remove paint after, when you get it in places where you don't really want it. So the first layer of paint you want to do is a really fine coat and then build it up, and then that way you'll get best adhesion. Don't try and do it all in one coat. Just take your time and see how it plumes. Obviously I should do it in a well ventilated space, which I am. Excuse me, floating camera. When you're repainting or touching up a car, it's really important to use the same sort of paint that the car was painted with originally, if possible. Or make sure that the paint that you're painting with won't react to the stuff that's already on the car. In this case, I'm actually using Vert et Brun, which is Jolene's colour. Jade green, basically, in French. And it's actual 2CV paint. It's what she was painted with originally. So I know it's not going to react. I know it's absolutely fine. Another thing is, if you are painting in cold conditions, I'd say under 15 degrees, make sure that you put your can in a warm room overnight first. Because if you can, not hot and not next to a heat source, always follow the directions on a tin, on the tin. But if you put, hello Napoleon, if you put your can in a warm room overnight, it makes sure that the gases inside the can are all expanded up, so you'll be able to get every last little bit of paint out of your tin of paint, and you won't get halfway through your painting and run out. It's a good little trick. And if you've got a can, an old can, that's kind of low, sometimes if you warm it up a bit, you can get that last little bit out. So now I've done my 3 coats, and it's touch dry, but it's not gone hard yet. The reason why I masked it up the way that I masked it up is because now I'm going to remove this outer masking and the sheets, and then I can get into the car and I can paint the inner edge of the top of this windscreen. I've managed to paint the back on the bottom, but I couldn't paint the back on the top as well. It just wasn't feasible. So now I can get in the car, I can put the roof back, I can mask those bits up. I think I'm going to have to take out the sun visors and the rear view mirror, and then I'm going to paint this inside top edge. It's a 2CV. Just what I wanted. If you're wondering where I got all this newspaper from, I raided the free publicity in the supermarket. There's usually a stand with like free newspapers and free publicity stuff on. And yeah, free masking paper. Not made of money. The easiest way not to get paint on the roof is, of course, to remove it. Which on a 2CV is as simple as that. There we go. No need to roll it up because I'm not driving anywhere. Now I can actually see what I'm doing in the car. I could mask it all off and try and paint around it, but it's much easier just to remove it all. Good morning everyone and welcome to day 3. This morning I've taken all the masking tape off and as you can see it looks okay. I masked up within the black line that was left by the rubber seal. And the reason I did that is otherwise, if this masking tape line, and it does leave a definite line, was outside of the rubber seal, I would have to blend that out with like scratch remover or like a really fine, like a 2000s grit wet and dry maybe, or something like that, to blend that line out, some T-cut. You could use something like that, but because I've done it within the black line, you'll never know it's there, you'll never see it, and so I don't have to polish it up, I don't have to faff with it. So as far as the car's concerned, the windscreen's ready to go back in, but the windscreen is a different matter. Follow me over here. So here's our windscreen, and you can just see how badly wrecked this windscreen seal was. It had been cut into, it's split, like it's a mess, and it had been sliced all the way along here. But we can't put it back in the car until the glass is clean, because it's had sealant on it and stuff like that. Like the guys tried to use latex sealant. I think it may have had some silicone on it at some point. It's a mess. So there's no point us preparing all the car and doing all that to the car if the windscreen is a mess and the windscreen, the new seal, doesn't seal against the glass because of all this schmutz that's on here. If I put it over the white, you can see this thick line of gooey muck that's on here. It's awful. A lot of it comes off with your fingers. We can get rid of this seal now, and a lot of it will just come off with window cleaner. If the stuff that doesn't come off with the window cleaner, you can take it off with a blade. Now then, rules for using blades on glass, because there's so many cars have scratches in the glass from someone using a blade, right? The rule with using a blade on glass is 1, don't unless you really, really have to. The other is, you want to wet the surface like profusely to give yourself some lubricant for the blade, and you want to lie the blade down as much as possible. So that if I flip this over, my masking tape's all coming off because the glass is dirty. But if you have to, you wet it like mad, and then with the goo, with your lubricant, you just slide your blade along like that. And it creates a bow wave of window cleaner in front of it. You can also use really soapy water. It creates a bow wave in front of it and actually gets rid of, and it stops the blade dragging on the glass. It gives you a boundary layer. I'm doing this on a polystyrene block just because it came with some packaging, and I don't want to put my glass directly on the table. I've also put some microfiber cloths underneath it as well. If I put my hand behind it, or put my hoodie behind it, you can see the silicone here on the glass. It's all coming away. And we've got to get all that off, otherwise all this work we've done over the last 3 days now is for nothing. Because you want the seal to be able to seal against the car on the outside, and you want the seal to be able to seal against the glass on the inside. As you can see, I'm working in a building site. I mean, that's the firewood saw, and like there's a cement mixer behind the camera, and it's not ideal working conditions. I've got a dirt floor, and we're digging foundations, and that's the battery box for the solar panels and all that jazz. It's not ideal, and we don't always have all the kit that we need, but that can be a good thing, because It's amazing what you can achieve with simple tools, attention to detail, and a bit of patience. When you're learning, for instance, when you're an apprentice, you start apprentices off with super simple tools, and the reason is, if you give people super fast, super high-tech tools, those tools are designed to speed a job up. And the problem with that is when you don't know what you're doing, you mess up really quickly. And remember that every great craftsman started off with no idea what they were doing. And they've learned how to do stuff through thousands of hours of practice. 100,000 million hours of of doing what they do, and that's why they are so good at what they do. And everybody messes up, especially when they're tired. I learned that myself. As soon as I get tired doing anything, I stop and walk away, because the chances of me messing up and then spending most of the next day fixing what I did gets higher and higher and higher the more tired I get. So if you start with simple tools, take your time. It's exactly the same as the really expensive stuff, but you get time that if you're messing up, you can realise you're messing up and sort it out before it's a major problem and you ruin whatever you're doing. Attention to detail is absolutely everything, and not everybody has it, but it's the difference between a good car builder and an okay car builder. It's the difference between a great, house builder or a mechanic or a whatever. If you have attention to detail and patience, you can get a lot done with very simple tools. Just look at what the Romans built, or look at what they built in the 1910s and the 1920s. They built Bugattis in a horse stable with hand tools. That's something that most of us have. Most of us, okay, we don't all have a forge in our barn, but most of us have hand tools, and they did a heck of a lot with not very much. So it just shows what you can actually accomplish with simple tools. They never had a 3D printer. I think that we're ready now to put the glass back in the car. It's a two-man job to put the glass back in the car, so I'm going to need a glamorous assistant. But you won't be needing a Stanley knife, I'm telling you that. Okay. What? Bloody hell. Right, so I've put my windscreen seal on now. Be very careful and do it the right way. There's a bevel edge, and it fits on in there. It doesn't fit in here. Don't put it on backwards, because then it won't fit in your car. That's with most things, but very true with windscreen seals. And there's a big difference between this windscreen seal and this one, I've noticed. This one's like really stiff and quite baggy, whereas this is very tight and a lot more flexible. So it's actually a better thing. Now then, what you're going to need for putting your windscreen in. This is sail string that I'm using here for repairing sails on yachts. It's basically really strong string. You can use paracord. I've seen electrical wire used, although I wouldn't use the electrical wire for electrical purposes afterwards. You're going to need, this is Ranette, or frog soap, frog juice, that basically fairy liquid, and you're going to need a glamorous assistant. I couldn't find a glamorous assistant. I've looked everywhere, so I've had to settle for my dad. But you're good at what you do. We love you anyway. And basically what we're gonna do is this edge here, we're going to lift it up and we're going to put our sail string inside it from the center. That's what this piece of tape here is for. And we're going to put it all the way around, cross it over, we're going to lube her up, and then we're going to pop her in. Dad's going to pop it in from put the bottom in, and then offer it back to me, and I'm going to pull the seal through, all the way through. That's the plan anyway. And hopefully, everything goes according to it. That tire lever is brilliant. Right, so the string has to be in the same spot in the centre. Right, so we pull the centre through like that, and then we apply lots of pressure. And in theory, at least, I need more pressure up here, dude. Right. In theory, at least, as I pull this string through, it pulls the windscreen seal through. This is where your frog soap comes in. Yeah. Oh, hang on, we need to push it up. A waxy string would have been better than this, really. But sometimes you've got to use what you've got. So things don't always go to plan. The string's popped out of the groove, so we're going to have to inch the bottom of the windscreen out very gently and pop the string back in. Okay, try and get it as far up. If I can get it within 10 mil, should it pull it through? Push it out a little bit more. Hopefully that'll do it. I'll try and get the rest in by hand. Hey, tie lever, worth its weight in gold. Although it don't weigh much. The windscreen's finally in after 3 days. I thought this would be quite a quick video to film. I thought it'd be about an hour of just pop a seal out, pop the other seal on and whack the windscreen back in. But we couldn't leave the rust, and I'm glad we've sorted it, and I'm glad that I know that it's not there anymore. And I'm glad my car don't leak anymore. That's the most important thing, and that's what all this has been about. I no longer have to mop up the windscreen as I drive along in the rain. Thank you all for watching this video. Thank you all for your likes, comments and subscribes. Please be awesome to each other, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye bye.